everybody, welcome to Vikings Report Rewind. I'm your host, Ted Glover, along with our usual partners in crime for the post-game show. My buddy Drew Bunting, my co-host for Vikings Report with Drew and Ted, and as always, the Kaiser Sose of this affair, Christopher Gates, the founder and lead writer for the Daily Norseman. Vikings lose a heartbreaker today, 30-23, effectively eliminated from playoff contention, and yeah. What do we think, boys? What do we think?
Man, in the spirit of the season, Matthew Stafford just tried to give this game to Minnesota multiple times over and over. They should have had 6 interceptions today. They wound up with 3, and the ones they did get, they did a really terrible job of cashing in on for the most part. So, I mean, they had their opportunities. This was a winnable football game. And there's really not a hell of a lot else that can be said about how this one turned out.
And yet they didn't win, Drew Bunting.
You started off with a little Farnsworth there. Vikings in a heartbreaker today.
To the dastardly Los Angeles Rams.
That game kind of went how I thought it would. I knew the Vikings can't get through a game cleanly without bunging it up somehow and shooting themselves in the foot. I mean, we jump into the numbers on this show usually, and there's really not any numbers that stand out this week besides the Rams doubling us up in rushing yardage. The Vikings 2 and 5 in the red zone. Those are really the two that jump out to me. Everything else is pretty much a mosh pit. It's all pretty much equal. But the Vikings, you turn on the game, you start watching it. Right off the bat, they dropped that interception. I think it was Dantzler.
Yeah.
And then they have a 4th and 1. Stafford fumbles it and still gets the first down. Welcome to being a Vikings fan. There you right off the bat. Let's get right into it right away. But
when that happened, it's sort of go ahead, Drew. Sorry.
No, I just said kind of the game unfolded the way I thought it would. I mean, I picked the Rams to win by 10, and we're pretty much right there. I kind of too many mistakes again.
It sort of felt like it wasn't going to be the Vikings' day when Stafford fumbled, picked up that quarterback sneak, and went in. First of all, before we get going any farther, thank you everybody that's joining us. Welcome, glad to have you along for the ride. Real quick announcement, kind of another big announcement. A few weeks ago, Drew, Chris, and I did a live watch party. We had a lot of fun. We thought it'd be fun to do one again. So next Sunday, whether the Vikings are still playing in prime time or not, we are going to do yet one more live watch party against Green Bay from Lambeau Field, whether it's Sunday night or whether they get out, whether they get flexed out of that prime time spot to Sunday afternoon. Chris, Drew, Ruby, who's in the background, and I will be live pregame, live watch party, postgame, just like we did against the Steelers game. If you didn't catch it, go ahead, watch a little bit of it. We had a good time. So next Sunday, about a half hour or so before kickoff, depending on whenever that kickoff will be, we'll let you know throughout the week on Twitter and on our Facebook page and whatever.
It's worth noting that the Vikings are undefeated when we have a live watch party. So
that's true. That's a very good point. Maybe we should have done it today. We would salvage the Vikings playoff shot.
No, we're not having any rules for this watch party either. We tried that once. We're going to go all out.
Yeah. It doesn't. It's over. It doesn't matter at this point. Speaking of it's over and it doesn't matter. Going into this game, I think if the Vikings had won, their playoff shot would have gone up to, I believe, is over 50%. With the loss today, it is now at 12%. With the rest of the games that determine the playoff odds yet to be played, essentially the Vikings season is over. They're not going to the playoffs. They're 7-8. Is it time for wholesale changes? Like right now, today, fire everybody?
I mean, if it was me, because the league has instituted a new rule this year that says you can interview coaching candidates during the last 2 weeks of the regular season as well. So that's where we're at now. And if I were the Wilfs, if I was planning on making a change, I would go ahead and start looking now. I mean, I absolutely don't think they're going to, but they can. And if I was in their shoes, I would, because it's time. It's been time for a while, but it's definitely time now.
Drew, would you start interviewing people right now?
Should I started 2 years ago? I would. I'm in a full agreement with my compadre, Christopher Gates. I think they should start exhausting all avenues. I mean, we talk about the gloom on this team, Ted, but I figured out what the gloom is today.
What's that?
The gloom is just the Vikings are this. They don't care either way. It doesn't look like to me. It doesn't matter win or lose. Can I get my paycheck on Tuesday? That's kind of what. And you know what? The overall sense to me is, as I watch these games, Kubiak is scared down in the red zone. He's a scared coordinator, but the reason he continues to be scared is because his head coach is scared. They're both scared. They're both cautious and nervous and all. They don't have that in them as a team. And it's that as long as that's there, the Rams gave him plenty of chances to be in this game and possibly win it, but the Vikings just are too cautious. Get in the red zone, run it up the middle twice in a row, then on third down, throw it away. You can't do that consistently in the NFL and beat teams, especially teams like the Rams who are going to be around 30 every week. You have to capitalize. So I don't want to get off too much on that. Yes, they should start looking for a head coach. That's what you asked me. So
the Vikings, I believe, on the day, and this is late in the second half, so it might have changed. But at one point, they were 1 for 4 in the red zone, and Kirk threw that interception. Now KJ Osborne should have caught it, but I still don't think it was like a great throw by Kirk, but it was a very catchable ball that became an interception. And it seemed like the Vikings. It felt like this game was going to be a shootout because the Rams went right down the field to score. The Vikings got the ball, went right down the field, looked like they were going to score. Then that interception happened, and it sort of, you talk about this. Drew, we've talked about this before, this gloom. And it just seemed like when this game started, especially when the defense gave up that opening drive, that the Vikings body language, the crowd didn't seem in it. The Vikings body language on the sidelines didn't seem fired up. And it really, until Anthony Barr's interception that got the Vikings set up first and goal on the 2 or the 3, it felt like you said earlier, they were just sort of going through the motions. And it was, and this team does this at least once a year under Mike Zimmer. There's a lot to play for, and they come out as flat as 4-day-old Coke with the cap left off the bottle. I mean, it was just unbelievable today with so much to play for. And we can debate whether the 7th seed is where the Vikings should have been this late in the season, or if they should not have been higher. But there was still a playoff spot on the line, and the Vikings just kind of sleepwalked through most of the game. Chris, did you see that? Did you sense that, or am I off here?
No, you're exactly right. And I think if Dancer would have held on to that first interception, I think that's the kind of play that would have done a little something to change that. But he drops that interception. You kind of get the feeling of, yeah, here we go again. They had an opportunity, and they. And I know Dancer had to go to the ground to try to make that interception, but still catch the damn ball.
Catchable ball, yep. And there were like half a dozen throws. I thought the Vikings should have had at least 4 picks in the first half alone. I mean, Matthew Stafford, Drew, in our Vikings, in our pregame show, you said, look, Matthew Stafford has nightmares about coming to Minnesota. And I think you're right. He was seeing ghosts. He was not playing good football today, yet the Rams still put up 30 points.
Good teams find a way to win. I kind of knew during the preview, I couldn't not say that he's going to be feeling it, feeling some bad mojo from the U.S. Bank, but he's had some bad games there, and he was flustered. They had him on, but just like they had Rodgers flustered, and he started playing better during the game. I mean, Stafford got it done when he needed to. I mean, the difference of him and Cousins is his game probably should have just went in the toilet the whole game, but he bounced back and started hitting passes. And, if you're not going to cover Cooper Kupp, this is what the outcome's going to be. But, the Rams helped the Vikings stay in there. Even with the scared offense, it was 20-13 or something. It was still a game. Yep. But, they had Stafford on the ropes, man.
They did. And for as much maligned as the Vikings defense has been, justifiably so, and on this show and on our regular show, on our preview show, they couldn't stop Sony Michel, but the Vikings defense kept the Vikings in this game with their turnovers, and Stafford wasn't playing well, and yet the Vikings offense couldn't do anything. They had good field position. They just couldn't move the ball. And I want to know why the hell this team, this offense, not this team, why this offense doesn't play, doesn't put together a good drive until they're down by 2 scores late in the third quarter, early in the fourth quarter. Somebody answer that question for me, please.
I honestly have no idea. I mean, the first Barr interception, where the Vikings wound up starting their drive at the 11-yard line. Very first play of the drive, Garrett Bradbury gets destroyed, gets called for a penalty that wound up getting declined because Cousins got sacked anyway. And then, you're behind schedule or whatever the case may be. I mean, like Drew brings up every week, it's the same damn mistakes that this team makes every single week. I mean, I know that, we had to put Oli Udoh back in at right guard because Mason Cole's done for the rest of the season now. And we had to make a couple other changes, but I mean, Garrett Bradbury is just about done here. I think. I mean, he's not been good for the better part of his time here. So, but yeah, I don't know. Like Ted keeps saying, this team doesn't open up the offense until they're down by 2 scores, and I don't understand why that is. It's ridiculous.
Did they have to play Oli Udoh though? I mean, did they have to? They got a rookie right guard on. I mean, I joked yesterday for Christmas I got a game worn Wyatt Davis jersey. Ha ha! Just kidding, because he doesn't play.
That guy has to look so bad in practice to not get any time at this point. And I mean, they brought Dakota Dozier up too, and that guy would have gotten out of the field before Wyatt Davis too. I mean,
yes.
The Vikings had 4 third-round picks, and the only one that's actually contributing is Patrick Jones. I think Wyatt Davis has been active like 2 or 3 times this year. Surratt's been active 2 or 3 times this year, and I know they're like quote unquote projects. But if you take dudes in the 3rd round, they should be on the field at some point, with the exception of the quarterback in most cases, obviously.
Yeah. And going back to that drive, down 2 scores, they finally look good. When they scored a touchdown on that drive, that was an aggressive call. Kirk hit, I believe it was KJ Osborne in the end zone. I mean, yep. And they went down the field in like 5 plays, 4 plays, whatever it was.
Why don't they do that the whole game?
Before that, one of the drives they got down in the red zone, and they did this Madison second and goal run right into Aaron Donald. 3rd and goal from the 6. They did a 2-yard out pattern. I think the pass was intended for either Osborne or Conklin. I can't remember who it was, but it was it's just this incredibly questionable play calling that causes the Vikings to not score points when they need to be able to score points against a team like the Los Angeles Rams. Because like Drew said, they're going to put up 30 points a game, and you better match them, and you better not settle for field goals, or this is going to be the result.
Yep. Especially if you're starting drives on the 11-yard line.
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling. One thing that Chris brought up that's important is, here we go again. We don't want the momentum. Barr makes an interception. First play, we have a penalty or a sack or something. Didn't Cousins get sacked? First thing.
It was both.
There we go. Watch all that momentum slide right down the crack of your ass because it's gone.
Yeah, every week.
They come out down. They're down 27-13. 20-yard pass to Conklin. Conklin totally bulldozes a guy to get everybody into it. 18-yard pass to Jefferson. Beautifully executed 12-yard screen to Madison. They're in the end zones 27-20. It's like they can't use that playbook, the one they're supposed to be using the whole game, until they get down 27-20, and then Clint Kubiak says, "Hey, Mike, can I use the back of this playbook, the one where all the doodling is that I doodle during the game? Can I use the doodle pages now?" Yeah, go ahead. Like they're not allowed to use that shit in the first half.
No.
3 and out. Hey, can I go to the doodle pit? Yeah, go, start doing it.
Okay, look.
But real quick. Millions of dollars are being spent on these coaches that can't figure that out. Why don't we run the same offense that we're down 2 touchdowns? Why don't we run it in the first? They can't figure it out. They cannot figure it out between them. Fired. All of them.
Drew, I'm gonna be Mike Zimmer. I want you to ask me the doodle question. Ask me the doodle question again, and I'll answer as Mike Zimmer.
Hey, can I use the back of the book, the ones I doodle on, the 2 pages? Can I use those now, Mike?
No, we haven't exhausted the laminated sheet of mistakes yet. We still got about 4 or 5 plays of those to use.
Drew,
right?
Drew, Drew calling that the doodle pages makes me think that the last 2 pages of the Vikings playbook are like, you remember those old commercials for like the Art Institute or whatever, where they like send you the pamphlet or whatever?
On the side of an envelope, yeah.
The one where you got to draw the mouse? You got to draw the mouse?
Yeah, draw this picture of the turtle and send it in, and we'll critique it for you. That's the last 2 pages of the Vikings playbook at this point. I mean, Jesus.
I believe the Art Institute was in Minneapolis, Minnesota. If I'm not mistaken.
I'm quite positive it was, but we can confirm that.
Can we call it the doodle pages? Because that's what the hell. It's a pattern. It's happened too many times, Chris Gates. They fall behind and they play the way you want them to play, and then when they catch up, they go back to the non-doodle page. The back of the playbook looks like a frickin' peachy folder, dude. There's so much doodling on that son of a bitch. It's not even funny. Look at that drive. Everybody, first off, thank you for dialing into Vikings Report. Everybody go back and watch that one drive. That was the best drive of the game. And it happened when they were down 2 touchdowns. And that is not a fluke or a coincidence. That's a Zimmer thing.
Yep.
Here's another question I have. And maybe it's just me. I could be wrong. But it seems to me that whenever the Minnesota Vikings get a kick return or a punt return for a touchdown, when they do it, it's maybe a 50-50 shot if they end up winning the game. I believe both the Kene Nwangwu kickoff return TDs ended up in games the Vikings lost this year. It feels like a 50-50 shot. But it also feels like when the opponent gets a punt return or a kick return for a TD, it's game over. It doesn't matter what the Vikings do, they're not going to win the football game. Am I wrong on that one too?
No, you're not wrong.
No, absolutely not.
You know what? I have to be honest. I missed that play. I kind of came in right when the guy was running into the end zone. I went to use the bathroom. What happened with the punter? Did he get run into? What the hell happened on that play? I don't really know at this point.
Go ahead, Chris.
I know he ran it back for a touchdown, but what led up to that?
I know Schlereth was saying on the replay, and Mark Schlereth is a great color guy, by the way. I like that guy a lot. But as far as the punt return, he said that everybody on the Vikings kind of got jammed into the middle of the field somehow, and they just let Brandon Powell get to the sideline, and there was really nobody there on the sideline because everybody got jammed up in the middle of the field somehow. So I think that was the genesis of that, pretty much.
Ted, you're absolutely right. Ted is right on that point.
And one more point about that punt return touchdown. There was a penalty. There was a roughing or a unsportsmanlike conduct or unnecessary roughness penalty called on Harrison Smith. Harrison Smith wasn't on the field. I think they meant to call a unsportsmanlike conduct. I don't know if he was gabbing at the refs or what, but they never did come back after the commercial and show what it was Harrison Smith did to receive a 15-yard penalty that the Rams used to use the drop kick on. There was a drop kick in an NFL game.
Talk about Farnsworth. I haven't seen that in 50 years.
I haven't seen a drop kick since the 1947 Michigan Grizz won it all. Sorry.
And that was another example of the Vikings shooting themselves in the foot too, because they had a 3rd and 4, and Brian O'Neill gets called for a false start, which makes it 3rd and 9, and Cousins winds up scrambling for 7 yards. I mean, if it's 3rd and 4, 7-yard scramble gets you first down, but 3rd and 9, nope, you get to punt the ball away, and then that happens.
And you know what's funny about what Chris Gates just mentioned? There's only 3 penalties the whole freaking game, and 2 of them stung us.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this sheet. I may be wrong here. It says the Rams got 1 penalty and the Vikings got 2.
Yeah.
Yep.
I thought, and for one, were there a couple plays that could have been called a penalty? There were, but I will give the referees credit on this game. They didn't call, if they weren't going to call holding, they weren't going to call holding unless it was blatantly obvious. And there were a couple, I thought, on the Madison touchdown run. I thought CJ Ham was doing some square dancing with the Rams defender. Because man, that was a do-si-do, brother. That's what that was, and they didn't call it. But the Rams were doing the same thing, and they were just letting them play. And I got to say, I liked it. I mean, obvious, blatant stuff should be called, but I'm very much a proponent of let them play as opposed to what we see on a weekly basis where teams are getting called 7, 8, 9, 10 times a game. My God.
Especially in the secondary. It seemed like they let both secondaries play.
Yeah.
A good little physical with the receivers.
Yeah.
On both sides. And I agree. I liked seeing that. Let them play a little bit,
And there was nothing egregious that was a non-call. I thought there was, I only watched a little bit of football yesterday on Christmas. I watched the late game, and the first play I tuned in, the Colts, I think, were called for a terrible pass interference penalty. I just turned it off. I'm like, what a waste. And there was no real non-call, except I think maybe there was one play where Cooper Kupp had caught the ball. The refs blew the whistle, called forward progress, and it looked right after that like he stripped the ball, like the ball was stripped, and the Vikings came up with it. And I couldn't tell for clear. Maybe you guys saw a better replay, but it looked like Kupp was out of bounds, and as he dropped the ball hit him, which means it was a dead ball anyways. So I don't know.
I thought it was inbounds. I thought it was a
yeah,
fumble.
So I thought it was a fumble. I didn't think his foot had gotten out of bounds before the ball got stripped away. But like you said, they called forward progress, and forward progress isn't reviewable. So yeah, that was probably the one that you could probably look at and say that they messed up. But yeah, like you said, I'd rather see a game that I guess you call it under officiated than one that's over officiated, like a lot of what we've seen this year.
Here's a comment from Vikings Uncensored. Are we beating them this week, Drew, by the way?
I haven't looked at any of the scoring yet, but I hope so. We have no wiggle room left.
All right. If the Wolves bring Zimmer back, it's 100% proof that they truly don't care about winning a championship. Can't disagree with that one. Ted Bertrand, there's no excuse for not being 9-6 right now, none whatsoever. Yeah, I agree. I mean, you look at this team, and Drew, we've talked about it. There are times when this offense looks damn near unstoppable. When they were down 2 touchdowns, 27-13, they bang, 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 bang right down the field, touchdown. And then for the rest of the game, for the most part, they just can't get out of their own way. The defense can't stop a fairly pedestrian running back like Sonny Michel. I believe he had well over 100 yards. The Rams in late in the second half are running it at almost 6 yards a clip. I mean, I don't know, man.
27 for 131 and a touchdown for Sonny Michel.
Well, you know what? That stands out in the stat sheet, but when you watch these games with your eyes, the offense is constantly letting the defense down. They are these shit drives. Yeah. These not even good looking 3-and-outs, because you can have a 3-and-out where you get 8 yards or something, and then I don't think there's such a good thing as a good looking 3-and-out. But some of these drives are just hideous compared to some of the talent they have and the exception of the expectations that we have. The offense is letting the defense down. You have the Rams. What did the Rams have in the early third quarter, halfway through the third quarter? 13 points?
They got to 20 on the punt return. There was 7:06 left in the third quarter. So, yeah.
I know it's not elite, but the defense isn't losing these games. The offense is crap. It's not doing good. And maybe you guys can – what about Cook not being there today? Did that hurt the offense a lot?
It might have.
I think there were a couple plays. One of the early – it might have been the Vikings' second drive. One of their very early drives. They had a third down. It was like 3rd and 4, and they ran a Cousins dumped it off to Madison, and he ended up being a yard short of the first down. He couldn't break a tackle. I think I tweeted out at the time. I think Cook makes that play and gets the first down. And there were a couple other times I thought it looked like there might have been some running room there if Dalvin Cook had been there and had seen the opening and gone. But overall, no, I don't think so. But that's just me.
I mean, that's one of the dangers you face when you build your offense around a running back, which is kind of what the Vikings have done with Dalvin Cook. I mean, if you lose Dalvin Cook and you have a running back in there that can't do all the same things that Dalvin Cook can do, it has an effect on things. And this team has pretty well built their offense around Dalvin Cook. And, Alexander Madison's a solid running back, but that dude can't do all the stuff that Dalvin Cook does. And that limits really more or less what you can do. So I don't know if Cook would have made that huge a difference in this one, but he does make a difference to the offense overall, I think. I think we pretty much agree on that.
Jay Johnson says from Chris Thomason, from Mike Zimmer, I guess from his post-game press conference, they ran the ball way better than we did today.
You reckon?
That's some searing insight from the Minnesota Vikings head coach right there, kids.
Get your doodle pad out. I want to make a quick statement going back to Rhino. What Rhino asked.
Yes.
There's no more if. You guys can all look at me. You can quote me and replay it on Vikings Rewind or wherever you want to replay it. Mike Zimmer is 100% gone at the end of the season. It's not going to happen now. It's not going to happen again after the game in Wisconsin. At the end of the season, not 99, Mike Zimmer's 100% fired off this team. I don't know what they're doing with Spielman, who should be fired with him, but I wanted to point that out to Rhino. We can stop with the ifs because Mike Zimmer is gone. Quote it, book me on that.
Yeah, I believe so too.
This team has not been over 500 since the last game of the 2019 season.
And you know what, Chris? It doesn't seem to bother them. It doesn't seem to bother anybody on the Vikings. It doesn't.
I think I saw it on Twitter. They have had 6 opportunities to get over 500 in the last 2 years, and they are 0-6 in those games. They get to 500 and then they immediately lose. And they're not going to get back to 500 this season because I don't know if they're going to win next week. So, yeah, that's pretty terrible. They have, with this talent, they have not been over 500 in 2 years.
Or even worse, they'll finish the season 9-8, but it won't matter because they're going to miss the playoffs, and it'll be this symbolic. Oh, they're an above 500 football team. Just watch.
So sick of it.
It can't be. It can't be.
Moral victories. It's not even a moral victory anymore.
So G-Mac says,
Vikings just do this.
Yeah, they do.
I guess they ran the ball better than us. Get out of town. Please get out. Please.
and here's the thing about that. I mean,
he doesn't give
I know we talk about the offense letting the defense down and whatnot. The way teams run the ball against the Vikings, you wouldn't know that on most plays, the Minnesota Vikings have almost 700 pounds of defensive tackle in the middle of the line because this team they let teams rip off 5-6 yards a carry. I mean, Sony Michel is not Dalvin Cook or, Derrick Henry or anything, but he was just killing this defense. And, when you give up 5 or 6 yards a carry on the early downs, it makes everything else easier. And that's what the Vikings do, despite, spending all this money on guys that are ostensibly here to stop teams from running the football.
If you're just joining us, the Los Angeles Rams get vengeance from the 1976 NFC Championship game, which took place 45 years ago today. They beat the Vikings 30-23. We got a bunch of new people joining us. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to Vikings Report Rewind. Got a question from G-Mac. He said, just think where we would be if the Wilfs had fired Zimmer in 2019, like it was reported they were contemplating. For those of you that aren't aware, a lot of rumors going around the week of that wild card game. That if the Vikings lost to the Saints, Mike Zimmer was out. They came back, had a very stunning, exciting overtime win against the Saints and saved Mike Zimmer's job. But I don't think his job is going to be saved at the end of this year. The Vikings were thought by many to be a playoff team, if not a Super Bowl contender after all the changes they made in the offseason. And they have now dropped to 7-8 on the year with the game at Green Bay and the season finale home against the Chicago Bears. So where do the Minnesota Vikings go from here, Christopher Gates?
I mean, you got 2 more games. You got to let things play out. I mean, they're not going to fire Mike Zimmer like tomorrow or anything. They would be justified in doing so, but they're not gonna. But I mean, there's no way he can come back next year. I don't think. I know that he's been solid for a lot of his time here, but there's no way you can bring that guy back. And if you're going to fire Mike Zimmer and not fire Mike Spielman, I don't know, or Mike Spielman, Rick Spielman, Rick Zimmer, Mike Spielman, what the hell? Who cares?
All one person,
man. They're basically the same guy. But yeah, you can't fire one and keep the other. I mean, they both got to go. You just gotta reset everything pretty much and see what you do in the off season here.
If there is, I agree. Rick Spielman needs to be gone. If there's a Mike Spielman anywhere in the front office, fire him too. Don't care. Get rid of him too.
I've heard rumors about they're going to take him away from the GM and put him in a different position. What is that all of? Come on, man.
I don't know.
Mike Spielman would be the Cooper Manning of the Spielman family. I think if
really
he's out
40,
there.
45 years ago today that we got to go to our last Super Bowl.
Yeah. 1976, man.
Yeah, the last.
Bobby Brown on the ball. Bobby Brown to the 40. He's the 50. Bobby Brown's going to get a touchdown. He's the 30. He's the 20. He's the 5. Touchdown, Vikings.
Yeah.
When Bryant blew the kiss, because he always blew a kiss. Man, those are the days, wasn't it?
The last time the Minnesota Vikings participated in a Super Bowl, I was 3.5 months old. And I can still see Willie Brown running that damn interception back too to ice the game for the Raiders, because that's that damn clip you see on NFL films like all the time. It's just Willie Brown's eyes as he's coming down the sideline. But yeah,
ascending the competitive phase of Super Bowl 11. John
I love
Facenda.
the glasses today, Chris. They look really good, man. I feel like singing the theme from Chips. You know the theme from Chips? Like
featuring Eric Estrada and the dude that was not Eric Estrada. Yeah, nobody knows who the hell that other guy was. It was Eric Estrada and the other dude.
Hey, before we get off the game, I want to ask you guys something about. I was fooled by the offensive line. A month ago, I thought maybe this is it. I was completely wrong. That offensive line is bad.
Yep.
I mean, Zimmer and Spielman should be fired for having the same crappy offensive line for 6 years. What's your guys' take on this offensive line, where it's at right now? Because since the second half of the Pittsburgh game, Ted, they have been run over.
People, there's a lot of talk amongst Vikings fans that if they fire Mike Zimmer, they should at least keep GM Rick Spielman. I would argue, and this is just me, I would argue that Rick Spielman's inability to find an offensive line that is at least league average for his 10 years as GM is a fireable offense in and of itself. You take everything else that Rick Spielman has done, good, bad, ugly, otherwise, the one continuous sore spot for this football team, and it shouldn't happen in this day and age with free agency and the draft and everything else, the one continuous open, festering, pus-riddled sore is the Minnesota Vikings offensive line. It never gets fixed. I think they've got a couple good players now in Christian Darrisaw and Brian O'Neill on left tackle and right tackle, and that's a heck of a good start. But the Vikings interior line has been absolute garbage the entire time, other than maybe 1 or 2 good years by Joe Berger. And I think John Sullivan was the center when Spielman first became GM. That's it. Every other interior offensive lineman has sucked, every single one. And they need a good offensive line to be able to compete.
Absolutely. I mean, it's not like they haven't taken shots. I mean, I know Matt Khalil's not an interior guy, but they used a high pick on him. They missed on Pat Elflein. It looks like they've missed on Garrett Bradbury. They've missed on. I mean, I don't know if they've missed on Wyatt Davis yet. Dude can't get on the damn field, and I don't understand why. But they've tried, and their ability to scout interior offensive linemen has just been awful. They haven't hit on anything like for years now.
They haven't.
You guys remember when they signed Remmers and Reef at the same, like right around the same time?
Yeah, and they went to the NFC Championship that year.
Well, no. The point is, though, Spielman standing with his chest pumped out at the podium. I think we got it right this time. The reason you're going to free agency to get guys is you can't draft worth a shit. That's why you're doing it. So don't claim to know. Look at me. If you're getting free agents, if they're not guys to just top off to get you to the Super Bowl, then you failed at drafting at that position, as far as I'm concerned.
All right. So
Ted's right. We haven't drafted good enough.
Going back to the comments real quick, Todd Gums, I believe, has said, let's see, where's the comment? I'm trying to find it. Todd Gums. We talk about moral victories all the time. He asks us, hey, could we have an immoral victory? And that makes me laugh. And I don't know. I hadn't planned on giving out a prize, but Todd Gums, congratulations. You just won yourself a prize. Get a hold of Vikings Report with Drew and Ted at gmail.com. Get a hold of Toonce's Vikings Report with Drew and Ted at gmail.com. She'll give you a link to our prize vault, which is inside the vault of the secret vault that's inside Fort Knox to get you your prize. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a great comment. Todd Gums.
It's a super secret. It's a super secret prize vault. Not a lot of people know about it. So anyways, but yeah, I mean, that's so for folks that say, keep Spielman. No, I think you need to bring a broom in and sweep everything clear and get Spielman out of the front office entirely.
Why does Wilf want to keep him, Ted? Ted and Christopher Gates. Why would Wilf give me some reasons that Wilf would want to keep Rick Spielman? Give me some reasons.
Chris?
I really don't have a good reason. I mean, he's had plenty of chances, like you said. I mean, there's a lot of guys he's hit on, later round guys, and some solid picks he's made. But like you said, the offensive line has been a sore spot for 10 years. I mean, since probably even more than 10 years even. But yeah, I mean, there just hasn't been enough, and you can't, like you said, you talk about the gloom all the time. And I think the gloom is, embedded kind of in all of those people. And you can't, we can't keep some of the gloom and get rid of a little bit of the gloom over here. No, you need to fumigate the entire thing pretty much.
Skull Edition is, people were talking about Byron Leftwich. He said, who was it? I just missed it. Skull Edition says, I can't see us going at Leftwich given the chaos in Jacksonville. And that's a good point. Byron Leftwich has a lot of ties to the Jacksonville community. Pretty good quarterback for them for a few years. I would think with Jacksonville in the market for a quarterback that he would probably be their top guy there. There's just a lot of, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a very interesting offseason. And once again, the Vikings are looking at a new regime, and I don't know about starting from scratch. But they are going to be starting with a new coaching staff. Drew, what are some pieces, as if you're a coach and you're offered the Minnesota Vikings job, what are some guys on offense and defense you would be excited about in taking over and wanting to coach?
Hunter and Kendricks would be the first two guys I sat down and went, all right, I believe in your defense. It might not have been a good year, but you're the foundation of it. A lot of younger guys want him. Great player. He's a great player. And I think we need a playmaker at linebacker, but Kendricks and Hunter would be the first two, then the younger guys, of course, the early picks. On offense, you just need a coordinator who's not going to be scared, who's going to, and you know what? The Cousins thing is over with. I don't know. They'd be really limited on players I'd like to keep, Ted. I would like to see Mon play against the Bears the last week of the season.
That was going to be a question I was going to ask. So you're in favor of at least seeing a little bit of Kellen Mond. Chris, what about you?
Absolutely. I mean, if you think the Cousins era is over, and it probably is, I don't know how you're going to unload his contract. But I guess there's been some trade rumors, not really trade rumors, but kind of speculation about the Vikings trading Cousins to someone to kind of get out from under the contract. But like we've said in previous weeks, if you're going to have a new regime coming in, this is talent evaluation time the last couple of weeks, and seeing if some of these young guys are going to be a part of your future. And you took Kellen Mond in the third round. You didn't trade up to get him. He was part of the deal with the Jets. But you took him at the top of the third round. You obviously think he's got something that's going to allow him to be the quarterback of the future here, and you need to give him an opportunity that's not, in the preseason with dudes that are bagging groceries now and stuff like that. Let him have an opportunity against the Bears in that final game, because it's not going to mean anything to anyone, because the Bears are already out of it. The Vikings are going to be out of it, and give the kid a shot. I mean, why not? You can't possibly hurt anything at this point.
Here's a comment from our buddy GMAX72. I doubt a new coach would want to fool with Cousins. No. Drew Bunting, if you're a new coach coming into Minnesota, are you going to keep Kirk Cousins, or are you going to want to trade him?
How do I put this? Hell no.
Hell no, trade him. Hell no, keep him.
No, I think you try to get what you can for him. Cousins is better than a lot of quarterbacks I watch, but there's certain plays, like remember that sack he took at the ankles today? And then another one when he was trying to get out of the pocket. Those are two plays that you need to keep alive. You got to have doesn't take much to keep those plays alive. It doesn't. And you need that. You need that with your quarterback. And I've been I've ripped on Cousins, but I've been one of his backers to say, you know what? When the crap hits the fan, he's been a pretty good quarterback, and I've always used he's a lot better than a lot of guys in the league, but that's a lame excuse. Just being better than some of the guys in the league isn't good enough. The whole Vikings system, just good enough isn't good enough. And we've been living with that for too long. And I think a new guy that comes in here, how can you want to try to build something with Kirk Cousins? Not with that offensive line. You can't with that offensive line. You can't.
Steve Scholler says, even with this O-line, this is a winnable game. I agree with him there. Chris Gates, you have just been named the Minnesota Vikings head coach. Are you keeping Kirk Cousins?
But like Drew said, I've been one of the guys' bigger supporters, and he's a lot better than a lot of the quarterbacks in this league. But I keep coming back to what Drew says about the gloom. And as good as Cousins has been, and as careful as he's been with the football most of the time, he's a part of it. And there are going to be teams. I think if you look at a team like Pittsburgh, there's rumors going around that Ben Roethlisberger is done after this year. They seem like the kind of a team that could put something around Kirk Cousins to kind of make a run for Mike Tomlin again. But yeah, I don't think you can keep Cousins at this point. I mean, especially if you get a new coach, the new coach is always going to want quote unquote their guy. And if that's a pick in this year's draft, or there's not really going to be anything available in free agency, I don't think. But yeah, I don't think a new coach or a new regime is going to want Cousins, even if it means being pretty awful for a year and trying to get a rebuild going, because this team has really never done a full scale rebuild. I mean, even the year they went 3-13, they weren't really rebuilding. They kind of built things around Adrian Peterson and made that kind of mini run in 2012. But in a lot of the time that I've been a fan, this team has never really just blown it up completely and started over. And I don't think it could hurt anything to do that at this point.
Okay, here's what I do. If I'm Ziggy Wilf, and I look at what happened today and we're done, I'm going to direct that the Chicago game, Kellen Mond starts. You're going to play him an entire game, and he stays in unless he gets hurt, because you need, and I'm not saying Kellen Mond's the guy. I based on where he was drafted and historically how quarterbacks do drafted in that range, the chances of him being the franchise guy are not good. But that said, you're not going to know unless you get some film of him to give to the next guy. And it's probably going to be a tough thing to tell Mike Zimmer, look, I want this kid on film to show the next incoming staff what he could or could not do. And then we can make a decision going forward from there. But I might even say you're going to play him the last two games to get as much tape as possible on this guy. And I know that next week is in Green Bay, but it doesn't matter. I mean, it just doesn't matter. What is that? Meatballs from the movie Meatballs? Because the Vikings are essentially because the Vikings are essentially done. They're not going to the playoffs. I mean, so you might as well, if you're the owner and you're a responsible owner, I would think you would want to do some kind of talent evaluation as a minimum to give, when you're at least doing job interviews, you can sit down with the guy, throw in tape of Kellen Mond and say, what do you think? What's the direction we're going to go? Do you think there's something there? Should we keep him and draft somebody else? We need a plan for the future, whether for your new GM and for your new coach, but that's just me.
But to caveat that, if you're going to play Kellen Mond the last game or the last two games, you need to put him out there with Justin Jefferson if he's available. With Adam Thielen if he's. You're not putting him out there with Amir Smith-Marset and Myron Mitchell and guys from the bottom. If you want this guy to potentially be your quarterback next year, you put him out there with the guys that are going to be there next year. Now, Thielen got hurt again today. I don't know if he's going to be able to play the last two games, which sucks. But yeah, if you're going to evaluate the guy, evaluate him under the same conditions that he's going to be under next year if he's your quarterback. Like that last game in 2019, we threw Sean Mannion out there. I mean, they deactivated everybody. And Sean Mannion was out there with like third stringers. I mean, that guy's not any good anyway. But, if you're going to put Kellen Mond out there for the next game or two, put him out there with the guys that he's going to be working with next season. Don't Don't bench dudes just because, you want to, basically.
Also, I'll add this. I'll go caveat on top of caveat. If you're not going to keep Zimmer, you're just bypassing anything, but you do whatever you want at this point if you're the owner. Put anybody out there you want, or instruct anybody you want. But if Kirk Cousins was brought here in 2018 is the final piece. Remember Ted Glover?
He was, yes.
If he wasn't, and it's turned out he wasn't the final piece. So if he's not the final piece, why would he be the piece to start it over?
Oh, bam! Bam!
That's just a Drew take at this point.
That's a solid. Yep. That's a solid observation, brother.
That was pretty awesome. You get a prize, Drew. I don't know what the prize is going to be, but yeah.
I'll take Tinses.
Okay.
All right. Fair enough.
No, I'm being serious. If he's not the guy back then, he's certainly not a guy to get it started again. I mean, come on.
That is a great observation. So I just saw this tweet come across. Justin Jefferson was one of the players interviewed in the Vikings post game. And I'm assuming the question was something about the Vikings red zone troubles. It doesn't say what the question was, but the answer is, I think we should be more aggressive as soon as we get down there in the red zone, said Justin Jefferson. But I'm not the one calling the plays.
There you go.
Yep.
There you
yes.
It's over.
It's over.
When you've pissed off the star player, yeah, it's time. You're done. It's over.
Over.
Speaking of Justin Jefferson, want to get one at least small bit of positivity here in the garbage that was today's loss. Justin Jefferson has now accumulated more receiving yards in his first 2 seasons than any player in NFL history. He needed like 21 yards coming into today. He wound up with 116, and he did it in 31 games. So no one's going to be able to use the old. The regular season was 1 game longer, so he had extra time to compile stats excuse. No, he did it in 31 games.
Get him up there.
He did it in 31 games, so congratulations to him. That was the one positive that I think we can take from this one. And yeah, if you're interviewing new head coaches, guys you want to potentially bring in, just show them film of Justin Jefferson for a couple hours, and they'll say, yeah, I want to come in and coach that guy. And yeah, you'll get somebody quality to come in here and do that.
There's some players that you can build around as an incoming coach and an incoming GM. And one of the things that frustrates me the most about the fire Zimmer but keep Spielman crowd, or the completely blow it up and start over crowd, is they just automatically assume the Vikings will be 3-13 for the next 4 or 5 years, or become the Detroit Lions or whatever. The NFL is designed that if you kind of halfway even know what you're doing, that's almost an impossibility. And Chris brought up a great point earlier about 2011 when the Vikings went 3-13, and the only positive thing that year was Jared Allen chasing the single season sack record. They came back in 2012 and won. Well, they didn't win the NFC North, but they went to the playoffs, went 10-6 and went to the playoffs. So it's far from impossible to have a bad team in perpetuity like the Detroit Lions or the Browns until very recently or whatever. So I would say to the folks that don't think the Vikings will ever be any good again, I would rather take a shot with a new coach and GM and a new philosophy and sacrifice maybe a 3-14 or 4-13, whatever, however hell many games they play this year, but get better and get a realistic chance to go to the Super Bowl in 2 or 3 seasons than knowing if you keep what you have, you're not ever going to get there.
No, that
well said. That is well said.
I mean, no, if you don't take the risk, you're not going to get the reward, I guess. So, according to Tankathon, if the draft were to be held today, your Minnesota Vikings would select at number 11. And of course they would get a high pick in a year where there are no consensus really good quarterbacks in the draft, if that's the direction they're going to go. But yeah, that's just the way things are right now. That's where they would pick, according to that site at this point in time. So we'll have to see how much that changes over the next couple of weeks.
Go ahead, Drew.
just to piggyback off what you said, Ted Glover, I think it could be best explained by look at the Bills. The Bills past 8-10 years were just like middle of the road, just garbagey, just not very relevant. They brought in McDermott. They may not be elite, but they got their fan base fired up for something that they have a chance with. They do. Yep. That's all you can ask for as a fan. Right now we're struggling in gloom, and it's not fun.
It's funny. I want to add to what you said about Kirk being the missing piece in 2018. This is now the fourth season with Kirk Cousins as the quarterback. And I'm not blaming Kirk because this is a team game and a lot of things happen over the course of a season. But after going to the NFC Championship in 2017, bringing in Kirk Cousins to be the final missing piece in 2018 to get over the hump, the Vikings have been to the playoffs one time. Well, yeah, one time in 4 years. It'll be one, and after that, they're not going this year. So one time in 4 years.
There you go.
Yep.
I mean, what more do you want from a keep what we have and maybe, this build around the edges thing that Spielman likes to do every year? It's not working. It has not worked, and I don't believe it is going to work. So I just say it's time to blow it up.
Good stat, Ted.
Absolutely.
That's 1,000 words in that last statement.
All right.
You know what? When your girl's coming home every night at 6 a.m, sooner or later you got to say that ain't cool. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This is coming home in the morning with your hair all mussed. It ain't cool.
All right. Well,
they got a long way to go, but they need to start turning it around just for the fan base. Come on.
Yeah. I mean, they need to generate excitement, and Mike Zimmer and Rick Spielman no longer generate excitement. I remember how excited I was when Mike Zimmer first got here the first couple of years, and it's just run its course, and it's time. It's just time. So, speaking of time, we've been going at this about an hour, and we are about out of time here. So, Drew, what do you got for any final words of wisdom on today's 30-23 loss?
It's kind of what I thought would happen. We're kind of all looking forward at this point, I think. I don't want to speak for you guys, but I am kind of. But you want to see guys like, remember Wanham, his body language last week in that Bears game? He was having a great time.
Yeah.
He was having a great time. And you remember that one play today when Cameron Bynum knocked that ball away? You remember that play?
Yep.
Was that the Cooper Kupp catch?
Across the middle, and he knocked it away. It was just the basic pass defense.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Did you see his reaction?
Don't recall.
Go back and look at it. That's what I want to see on the field. At this point, I'm not worried about wins and losses. I'm worried about that. That's what I wanted. Cameron Bynum was so excited to knock that ball. That's what we need. We need that attitude. That's what the Vikings need at this point, and that's what I've been looking forward to the last 2 weeks to turn this thing around. But always great being here talking football with you guys, and thanks everybody for showing up today. So, well done.
Chris?
Yeah, I mean, the competitive portion of the season is over. I mean, our best hope is to maybe go into Green Bay next week and try to ruin things for them, which would be something, I guess. I mean, they're still not going to the playoffs, even if they do that anymore. But we're going live next week, and it's going to be pretty sweet. And if we're gonna lose and everything's going to be awful, we can at least try to make things a little more enjoyable for everyone, I guess. So it's going to be fun. I mean, we have not anymore. I mean, I respect the people too much to lie to the people. So I'm not. I'm not. Our audience isn't stupid. They know it's over. We know it's over. Everyone knows it's over. So I mean, there's really not much else you can say. They had their opportunities to win today. They didn't take advantage of any of them. And now you're 7-8, and you're probably going to finish the season under 500 again. So, it's been the story of the Vikings season. 14 one-score games. They're 6-8 in those games. Every single one of those games was a winnable game. And they just didn't, because they do the same damn things every week. Like Drew says pretty much in the first segment of the show, after every game, same damn mistakes all the time. So, that's where we are, and that's why we are where we are. So, yeah, not really much else you can say there.
All right, Todd
That's
Gums, get a hold of
Todd
Ruby.
Gums.
Vikings Report with Drew and Ted at gmail.com to get your super secret prize vault access code. We keep those closer to the vest, and the president has the nuclear codes, baby. We're doing a live show next week. No studio show. We'll be live Sunday about 30 minutes before the Vikings Packers game, whether it's in prime time or whether it gets flexed out of prime time. I would think that might happen now based on what happened to the Vikings today. And what happened to the Vikings today was a 30-23 loss at the hands of the Los Angeles Rams, who did in fact clinch a playoff spot, while pretty much essentially knocking the Vikings out. So yes, the Rams get revenge for the 1976 NFC Championship game.
What a day that was.
Yep.
All right.
I was 11 years old, sneaking little shots of wild turkey out of my Uncle Paulie's little flask. We were having a good time at the house, man.
Yeah. All right. So for Chris, for Ruby, for Drew, thank you everybody who tuned in and watched us, and we will see you.